Okay, it's still 10 o'clock and I will call this special town board slash finance slash budget review meeting to order. And we will start with the pledge. We'll just start saying it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Heather, could you confirm that the meeting was properly advertised?
Yes, I can.
And would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember John Casey,
Present.
Councilmember Terrence Fennelly,
Present.
Councilmember Adeline Ruda,
Here.
Councilmember David Sauter,
David is necessarily absent.
Supervisor Jared Simpson.
Here. All right, so the purpose of today's meeting is to continue with the budget. And we did not do this last time, but Doug, are you okay giving just a quick recap?
Sure. Again,
Just where we are, what the numbers are, and I will share some information I found out today from the county level as well. So just kind of another quick recap.
Sure. So maybe the best thing is down on this screen down here, I'll just kind of use this budget at a
Perfect.
glance thing again here. So for the 24 overall budget, what we're proposing, or the now preliminary budget has been, actually, you know what, I'm going to use the tentative budget number of 14.4 million because the town board made some amendments to the preliminary budget that I don't yet have the updated number, but I will later this week, and I'll share that information with you because you made some adjustments. But the tentative budget was 14.4 million, so it's reduced slightly at the moment. And then you've got overall the town tax rate would be set at 78 cents based on that budget. The big thing is the special districts, and I know that's really what we're going to kind of get into some of the weeds and talk about some of the details in the special districts. Every parcel in the town of Canada is in our fire protection district, and the tax rate would be set at, it looks like 86 cents thousand for that. And the average home in the town of Canada would pay an extra $74 for fire. Water, lighting, and drainage all vary depending on the district, and we'll go through some of that today, some of those particulars. The budget is not tax cap compliant by $600,000, and that is overwhelmingly primarily due to, well, it's 100% due to special districts. The general fund and highway fund would actually be tax cap compliant, but it's the special districts and improvements that are needed in some of the special districts. Everything like the fire, like drainage districts, water districts, lighting districts, sewer districts, the uptown business improvement district, those all go against our overall tax cap in the computations that we have to do for that. So without getting into the details there, Jared, I'll just kind of stop at that kind of
Okay.
overall.
No, that works. And the overall increase in the general fund was what percentage? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot for that.
No.
So it was last year, the general fund, and it's in the detail, but last year, the general fund was 5.1 million. And this year, the general fund is 5.1 million.
Okay,
It's a 1.4%
Okay.
increase, so
and
it's
then
up $69,273.
the highway fund, was that, we were closer to what, 9% of the highway?
Yeah, so it was 4.3 million last year, and then this year, 4.7.
Okay.
So yeah, that's 9%.
9%, okay, perfect, thank you. I do want to share, I'm double tasking today. I've got their county finance meetings going on as well today, so I've got closed captions on the screen over here to the right for those meetings. But I was informed that the county tax rate, projected tax rate for 2024 is $6.05. Last year in the town of Canandaigua, we paid $7.33. This year it's going down to $6.05. So I did some calculations, and this is without the special, this is not including fire, this is not including water or any other special districts. This is just basic tax rate. So a $299,000 home, which would have been probably close to typical, with a 35% increase in valuation would have been, is now a $391,000 home. With the county going to 605, the town going to 78 cents, and the school district going to $14.05. That home would see about, just in the overall operating of those three lines, would see a decrease going from $8,437.78 to $8,168.76. So that's, I just wanted to share that. So I do appreciate the school district taking into an account the valuations, which they have to,
Do we have the school district rate yet?
1405.
1405, okay.
And the county, 5 cents in the county budget is about $700,000 in revenue. So if you, for every $700,000 you cut out of the county budget, you would save that 5 cents. We were hoping to get it a little bit lower, but I also learned that because of state law, they cannot tax. They have different rules that they have to follow, and it would be, the state legislation would have to change to allow them to. It wasn't explained to me very well, and I didn't get it in writing, but based on the value of the municipality, they can't look at as individually as we would like them to say, you just had a revaluation, your values increased by X, so we now can adjust your rate by that amount. They don't have that same ability. It would require a change in the legislation for them to have more flexibility with how they assign the balances and how they assign the amounts. So I just wanted to share that. That's a little bit of a side note, but I just wanted to share that before we jump into our special districts.
What was the rate before?
Which one?
The county,
County was 733,
733.
and the school was 1986. So the county went,
Yeah, so it was 733 because we weren't at 100%.
Yes.
I think the base rate was what, 631?
the what?
The base rate.
The base rate was
Yeah.
631, correct, and it went to 605 because now you have Farmington coming online at 100%, you have Gorham, and you have Geneva, the town of Geneva coming online to 100%.
Last year, we were at what rate?
Last year, our tax rate was $7.33 for the county.
So they can still create, just like the school district does, the county can still adjust based on.
They
the
have equalization rates, yeah, and we will notice probably that other municipalities will pay a higher tax rate than ours. Ours was, we had the lowest equalization rate last year at 86% in the entire county. And in conversations with the county administrator, he basically said that 86% was off. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
probably, and we know
Obviously,
that,
if
we
it was
probably should have been
37%.
closer to 65% equalization rate, which then would have changed that other rate even more. So, yes, they do assign the equalization rates just like the school district does. So we will notice, if we look at the budget, you'll notice that other municipalities will be paying more than we will, because their rates.
Like, just as an example, the city of Canandaigua, we know is not at 100% equalization right now. So the city residents will end up more than likely paying more than 605. Higher rate.
Did they say what percent the county tax levy is going up?
I have not gotten to that part yet.
So in essence, our town taxpayers are paying roughly, I didn't do the exact amount, 15% more. Than the tax. What you're failing to do is a $300,000 house last year
Mhm.
is now a $400,000 house.
No, I said
Right,
that,
because the appraisal on average went up 1.37%.
so I took a $299,000 house to 391. So,
So a 299
Yeah.
house and let's just call it a $300,000 house.
Yep.
Last year paid $2,200. That same house now with the 37% increase will pay $2,670
for county,
to the county.
I'm not seeing that.
If the $300,000 house last year now is appraised at $411,000, It's a 37% increase. You do the math.
So last year, the average house in the town of Canandaigua with 4,999 parcels was $282,933.
282?
282.
So 282 times 1.1.37.
And then now it should be 383,198.
So our taxes went up pretty significant.
See, I'm seeing about 100, with that, I'm seeing about not quite a $200 increase at the county level.
Let's do it again. You had, the average house last year was how much?
282,933.
All right, let's call it 283. Times
And now it's,
7.33
it should be
comes
383.
at $2,075, round numbers.
Okay.
And this year, the average house is how much, Doug?
383.
383 times
6.05,
6.05, $2,317.
2317, which
10% increase.
Bigger one is
Yeah.
school. I would look at
So-
what the school one is,
But
because.
that's, yeah, so the count, and that also accounts for the fact that our equalization rate was at 86%, which we all know last year's rate based on that should have been higher.
I think last year's
Yeah.
rate was $20.20 for the average town resident for school.
Okay.
You said what, 1405?
I had I thought it was 1986 last year, but you had 2020,
Yeah, $20.20.
and now it's 1405.
14.
But,
Yeah.
so,
$20.20 last year.
Yes.
Third reduction. And what
It was
was that?
1405.
yeah, it's close.
And the average house was, what did we say, 282?
280, 280,
283 and
This year
383.
is how much, Doug?
383.
380. $700.
So 5,700 last year.
5380 this year.
So reduction,
Mhm.
almost $400.
So,
600 bucks. That's 300
and it washes, I mean, so the story is, I mean, we can argue, no, you know, we can do the math and calculations and continue to do that, numbers and the numbers. The county rate did come down, not as much as I had hoped. But I think that's evident from the fact that that equalization rate was not accurately calculated last year. But the benefit is for the average homeowner in the town of Canandaigua, that decrease in school tax makes up that difference. And ends up being a benefit and makes up for that difference. I wish the county could come back lower, but right now it's at that 605 rate.
Oh, it's still being debated there apparently.
It's still being debated and it'll be
What the final
debated.
number, is, but it's probably not gonna shift.
It's not gonna shift. I don't see it shifting that much. It's not gonna shift that much. It might be a 610 or a 6, but it's about, I think it's the most of the shift.
Well, and to your point, the exact calculations that you guys were just doing on the school and the county tax, that's exactly what this chart shows.
Yeah.
For the town related taxes.
Mhm.
And so you see the average homeowner, because of the special districts, would be paying at that 78 cents per thousand, would be paying an additional $141.46, but that's driven by the special districts. General and highway would be $3
Yeah.
more.
So hopefully if we put that in 2-3, that would take that to roughly 8,300. So hopefully for that person in that 37% range,
I just
there
did
should be a wash.
school and county together last year, this year, if I did this right, it's $9 increase for the average house. At
Between the school
282
and the
last
county.
year and 383 this
Yeah.
year, so it's a $9 increase between school and county. The school went down significantly, the county went up a little bit, so.
So I didn't mean to take us down that rabbit hole, but I just wanted to share so everybody's aware of what the numbers are. And the information as I get it.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right, so we're in a special districts.
Apologize, I did not print off an agenda, so I don't know.
It's okay, I didn't work.
It's pretty.
I have, if we wanna pick
There's
up,
not anything on it, really.
if we wanna pick up, yeah, the agenda is meeting.
Thank you.
If we wanna pick up where we left off.
All right.
No.
Here, I
Do you
guess I
want
don't
to-
need it, so. Thank you.
Yeah, so we will do a privilege of the floor first, because we have two of those on the agenda. But I have marked page 83 where we left off, 82 or 83, it could have been 82, depending on where I put my sticky note. All right. Oh, I don't want to start my video, stop. Okay, sorry. All right, privilege of the floor. Asana?
Okay. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, I just need to understand, because I think there is stuff going on in the background that town residents don't know. So, at the last budget meeting, you read the responsibilities of the supervisor.
Correct.
Okay, so why then, in the 6-month period, we did not have a newsletter? Our website was not updated. And all the other communications that were the purview of the supervisor.
Great.
Okay, so now you are asking, I think it was $48,000 in addition to your $46,000 for supervisor to actually do the job of the communications. And that's why I don't understand. I mean, even if I'm not sure about the $46,000. If you're going to be full-time, it's fine with me, but that should include your responsibilities instead of asking for $48,000 additional. So there's something happening in the background, I think. And also, when was this discussed, this new issue with the supervisor? Because the town residents are just finding out about it. So it's not very transparent. You know, why and what is happening. And I would like to understand this better.
Sure.
I just want to correct
So-
your numbers before you answer, sir.
Yeah.
The $72,000 increase for the supervisor
Oh. Well,
From the current.
from the current level.
She was listing the two, she wasn't wrong, she was listing the two numbers, the 46 and the 48,
right.
that are
right,
listed in the
that-
budget.
That you had.
Yeah. That are delineated in the budget,
Right.
correct, so her numbers were not wrong. They were correct. So,
Right.
but your number is correct, both numbers are correct,
Right.
both numbers are right.
Okay,
So let me answer those, I'll answer those questions. So that job outline in the job description of the supervisor, those are things that Doug and I have discussed over the last several months. It is not something that is set at this point. There are many items on that list that had been performed by the town manager's office and town manager's staff. And as staff shifted and alignment shifted and responsibility shifted, those things were not getting done. So that is a job description, a job listing. Some of those things are currently the responsibility. There are other things on there that would be the additional responsibility, assuming the budget goes through. Those things would be added to that responsibility. They are not officially there right now per town. It's gonna require a change in code because there are some things in there that are specific, that are assigned to the manager's office. So it's gonna take those changes, assuming the budget goes through. Those things will have to happen to make all this come together. So to say they weren't getting done and that I should have been doing them for the last 6 months, that's not 100% accurate, because those were things that had been getting done. But as as assignments shifted, there were things that stopped getting done. This move is a way to, okay, residents have requested newsletter, communication, better publicity, all of these things. We identified that they weren't getting done. This is the solution that the town manager and I that we had discussed, looking for ways to make that happen.
So,
Okay,
okay, so
Can I
Jared,
just chime in for a second, please? I did talk to Sarah about this, and she was a part-time employee. I think when she was doing this work, she was doing an admirable job at it. I think that the public was very satisfied with the work that she was producing. And she was doing that as a part-time employee and also doing that as part-time, maybe, I don't want to say 40 or 50% of her time doing this. So the reality is that this was probably taking, I didn't ask the specific percentage, but she was doing this with a very limited number of hours that she was doing this with. And it was, again, she was working part-time. I think at the time we had talked that she was working about 24 hours a week. I might not be exact with that. But much of that time was working directly with Doug and doing much of the work that Doug needed to have done. And only a smaller portion of her hours were used doing the communications effort. That's all I have to say.
okay, so this is, you know, a big jump. And so why hasn't this been discussed earlier? You know, so that at budget time, like, we are in shock about this new positions, new responsibilities. And as one gentleman said at the other budget meeting, why is it that 5 people are going to make the decision when it should be brought up to the general population of the town and a discussion made? So why wasn't it?
well, so I would ask too, I mean, you have these discussions and they come up in budget time. And this is the time, a several month period to have these discussions. I don't know if it started a month or two earlier, if the same people would have said, well, why didn't you start 2 months earlier than you did? I think it's always that case. People always say, why didn't you start talking about something earlier than you did? And I would also, and I think back, and by no means this is, and I'm gonna bring this up, but it's totally for factual discussion. I was not on the board at the time when the board made other decisions, when the shift was made and we hired, and the board hired Doug as town manager. I don't know, I wasn't really involved, but I don't know how many people made that decision. And I'm not saying that against that Doug in his position, because he's fantastic. So I just want to get that out there. So, because I know somebody might take it and say, well, why are you bringing that up? It's a similar discussion. I don't know how many, I wasn't around. Terry, you were, how many people made that decision? 5. So just for an example, I mean, that's the populace elects the board makes those decisions.
We're not a democracy.
Right,
We are a representative republic.
right.
I'm not defending these numbers at all, is what I'm saying now,
Yeah.
but you know, people elect others to represent them, to speak for them, and to vote on issues that come before that group. And the reality is that if the general population doesn't like the way that that group of elected people is voting and conducting business, take 4 years, of course, to change it, but that's when the change can occur. So, yes, I was on the board when that happened. I was, as I said the other day, I was the lone holdout. I was not a in favor of this form of governance, but as I researched it and I talked to other people, different areas, I came to the conclusion that this is a very effective method for conducting business for the town, that it provides continuity as people come and go off the board. That there is professional leadership in the background, making sure that the day-to-day stuff happens as it should, that we're following our codes, our policies, all those factors that govern how we work. And I think it's been very, very effective. I said, I think we probably should have a town manager that isn't as effective as Doug. It's fantastic in what he does.
And so.
But it does give us a very solid base to operate from. We can be assured that everything's going to happen as changes occur on the board, so.
But to bring it back to the question, it's, it's decisions are made by a board, and the board is the five. And part of this decision, this discussion also came from the fact that for multiple years, CIC, which you're part of, requested communications, requested that position, requested for those responsibilities, and it was a request year after year after year. It's a void. We need more, we need more, we need more. This was an opportunity through the discussion to provide that more in a way that, yeah, it's a shift for me in my position. It's a risk for me in my position because my intention is I won't be doing both. I think you had asked, I don't remember where or who you had asked it to, but does this mean he's going to be doing both, doing this and teaching, and how can he do that? No, my intent is to step away from that if this goes through. So this will be the full-time focus that I have to help fill that need for the communications, for everything that this was an attempt. This was us talking, Doug and I, because it was not in the beginning of conversation with the whole board. How do we solve this? How do we figure this out? Here's an opportunity. And it's something that we worked to this point to meet those needs and requests that boards had, specifically the CIC, and we have 2 representatives right here from that committee requesting that.
I think
something.
CIC is requesting it,
Mhm.
okay, but Terry already said he's not gonna vote for it. And about the communications part, okay, and you also
I
said.
think the communications part can be filled with a part-time administrative assistant that can be more reasonably compensated to the advantage of our taxpayers than hiring full-time supervisor to be responsible for communications. And I'll just note that in our budget, there is a summary of what the Victor and Farmington communities are paying for their, I'll call it senior level management in their towns. And I would say, and also what we have been paying historically. And the town of Victor is paying over $500,000 for their senior management team. The town of Farmington is paying over $300,000 for their senior management team. And I think Doug has been doing an exemplary job in keeping the cost of our executive management team down to about $215,000 a year.
218.
And now to go and add and change, modify that management structure, I think is not effective for our town taxpayers.
I think what's being lost in this entire conversation is that
Can you speak louder?
this conversation has nothing to do with a anti-manager form of government. This is not what it's about in any way, shape, or form. I think all of us have appreciated what Doug has brought to the table. We've appreciated that professional management. The same sheet that you're referring to, John, that shows those different amounts, what we are missing in the town, I mean, if you look at Victor and Farmington, they have budget officers, finance directors, bookkeepers, director of developments, finance clerks, director of economic developments, and all of that is currently happening through Doug. I think this role, what this is part of it doing is indicating that we are lacking high-level executive help in our office, and that
What is
gives
not getting done?
excuse me, I'm still speaking. This gives the supervisor an opportunity to be part of that team that helps to lead the town of Canandaigua, and helps to take some of that off of the back of our town manager, who's trying to fulfill all of these positions in all of these towns. So rather than this being opposed to a town manager form of government or just about communications, this is about having supportive leadership in our town that can help our town move forward. And it's a lot cheaper to do it this way than to add a budget officer, a finance director, a bookkeeper, a director of development, a finance clerk, and a director of economic development.
Well, I just, in response to that, have to say, one, I don't hear Doug clamoring for and us to hire any of these people. And two, I would ask, what is not getting done that you think needs to get done? Or that our community thinks needs to get done? All I've heard our community come before us and say is that they'd like some improvement with the communication.
Mhm.
And I think I've illustrated that our communication was being done very good and very well up to April of this year, when Sarah was repositioned in the office. And Sarah was doing the communication efforts probably with less than 10 hours a week, and was compensated at a level of administrative clerical responsibilities. We're not talking about that.
Yep,
We're
that's not what
talking
I'm
about
talking about
adding
either.
someone to the staff, which we can't really even define what the role is going to be, other than to say it's gonna be enhancing our communication efforts for the town, for the town, at a cost of $72,000 a year,
I would say that
and then some.
I would say that we have had a number of communications with our town manager indicating the high level of stress experienced by our employees because they have been working beyond their job descriptions for many, many months now.
That was very early on in the year when we had some people that were leaving, and those people have subsequently been replaced. And I think that, quite honestly, our town is managing and working very well. And if our town manager thinks he needs additional help, then he should be coming to our board and telling us what type of help he needs. And we ought to be going out and then doing a search for a professional with that level of training and that level of expertise and experience to fill that void, if there is such a void.
I'll remind you that our town manager wrote this budget.
Our town manager, as he pointed out in an email earlier this week, is not supportive of this budget and says there are things in this budget that he would not support if he was the one that was drafting.
I did not receive
Did I
any such email.
misspeak, Doug?
That is not the email that I received from our town manager.
You guys have put me on the spot.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't see that either.
I
So
will see nothing of
You
this.
actually all saw the same email he's referring to, that refers to the one with the fireworks, so everybody got the same email, because I always send everybody the same. And the fireworks is a good example of that, but I'm gonna go back to a second here. I don't necessarily disagree with anything that's been said here, by anybody. This is very much a political decision, and as I said the other night, I will implement whatever political decision you make. If you vote not to fund this, I will promise that the newsletter will get done. If you vote to fund it, it's not be my responsibility. There are many ways to solve problems, as we do always, right? And so this is a political decision that has to be made by the board. And I'm not gonna get involved in that political decision. You guys are gonna have to fight that one out on your own. We do our best to, as I always say, we do our best to make everything neat and tidy on a silver platter and hand it to you, but this is not one of them. And, this particular issue, there's, this has been discussed since about the April time frame. We've had restructuring that has taken place. I don't think it's fair to point the finger at any one individual for the newsletter not getting done this year. I think that, April, May, June, I would say, were extremely stressful with the transition, the reval and everything else. And I think that would have been very difficult for us to pull the newsletter together at that point. July and August, as we've continued this conversation and we start talking about doing something else, that's where you know, and I made the comment the other night, and Jared and I talked about this, we kind of have this unfortunate situation right now where we're both 1 foot in, 1 foot out on some of these issues. And truthfully, I think the town board needs to adopt some policies and we need to stick to them. Whether it's budget, whether it's finance, whether it's public relations, whatever it is, because I feel like more so than any year I've been involved, we have gone off in different directions and not necessarily following some of our policies, and that's a concern to me. And so I would like to see those get, you know, cleared up, and then we go with that. In terms of the budget, I used the fireworks example publicly that I said in the email that I sent to all 5 of you and everything. I would never have submitted the $30,000 in fireworks had it not been for communication that I have received from 3 or more board members throughout the course of the year that they supported having fireworks in the 24 budget. Why would I have not put it in there? I would not have put it in there because I think this is a tight budget. And I would have actually, if I had just been making the decision on my own, allocated that money more to highway and infrastructure improvements than I would have spending the $30,000 on fireworks. But at the end of the day, this is a political decision. The budget, you guys get elected to make the decisions that you feel the community wants. And if you feel the community wants $30,000 worth of fireworks, then by all means, please do it. I'm not going to chastise you for that. But, you know, that was a strategic move where I went ahead and put it in, as I said in the email that I sent to all of you after talking to other managers, and they said, you know, if they want it, they can always put it in anyway, put it in and let them figure out how to pay for it, you know? And so that's where there are some things in this budget like that I wouldn't have just put in there, but that is ultimately up to you guys to decide. So not it, passing the buck back.
So,
So Jared,
hold on one second. Karen, did you have a comment?
Well, I have
Since it's
something I wanna say
technically
in
privilege of the floor. Okay,
well,
so I'll let,
I'm not finished.
okay, we are more than 3 minutes, but it's okay.
Okay, so Jared, please tell us, did you get the 2-year,
leave of absence.
what is it?
Leave
What
of
would you
absence.
call it?
So I,
Wait, what, why are we asking
Okay,
about
that-
Jared's other position?
yeah, that, so,
Well, because he
Oksana?
shared something with us.
That's really, I don't think
so
this is.
it's number one, it's my decision, it's a discussion between myself and the school. Number 2, if this goes through, I will be here, I will not be there,
Okay,
okay?
Yeah.
So is that clear enough?
yeah,
So I will be here, I will not be there.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Karen?
So. It all comes down to elected officials, as Doug said, it's political. So I've been wrecking my brain with qualities I would like to see an elected official, and I think most taxpayers and municipal residents would like to see. So here they are. They should listen to their constituents and take action for the betterment of all of them. Holding a public office is an act of service to the public. That means all of the residents of the town, not just those who share your views or voted for you. It comes with an obligation to look beyond yourself and your personal needs. To govern well, elected leaders should help each other and the public stay focused on the common good. As an elected official, you are a champion of civic achievement. You should be active in celebrating the achievements of your community. And this is where the newsletter comes in. This is the main element of your positions. And finally, you should be ethical. You're serving the public rather than reaping personal benefit from your position. Now, I do understand that New York State municipal law excludes salaries from conflict of interest. However, in my opinion, a truly ethical person would not give himself a 330% raise in preparing a yearly budget unless there is a really good reason. I see no really good reason here. Finally, Jared, I personally do not believe you deserve a raise in your first year as town supervisor. Number one, you've had difficulty in identifying goals for the town board to work on this year. And I've sat through every town board meeting, so I know this to be. There is no communication in the community, either via newsletters nor town board agenda and reports. And I do know that teachers spend time during the summer working. However, you had the entire summer to update the community via a periodic newsletter, and it did not happen. You're also involved in putting together the agenda with reports for the town board meetings, and there have been few, if none, in the last several agendas. And another thing is, discussion about monthly resolutions takes place at the finance committee. Who would have thought? I mean, it was just by accident we attended a finance committee meeting. I was flabbergasted. How many residents know this? Truly now. And I personally think transparency is a thing of the past in this town of Canandaigua. You yourself have not given anyone a real reason for the salary increase. Today you did discuss it. If I sit on a board, and I do sit on a county board, 2 county boards, actually, and I'm chairperson of one. We believe in compromise on some of those things that we vote on. There surely can be a compromise here. You know, if rather than an all or nothing, what about looking at a compromise? Another thing I would like to know, I mean, I have spent hours on New York State municipal law and open meetings law, hours this week. I like to sleep 8 hours a night. I haven't done. And I would like to know where sections 800 to 809 of Article 18 of the New York State municipal law are posted as required for the public to read and see. And finally, I'll close with a quotation from Benjamin Franklin, who you all know, you should know, founder of our republic. When the people find that they can vote themselves money, that heralds the end of the republic. Sell not liberty, purchase power. Amen.
In response to what I've heard, I have to speak out in response. I think Doug is speaking very judiciously. And he says this is a political decision. I think that's a very judicial use of the English language. It's political, it's not operational. Relative to the compensation, I personally offered a compromise position, but wasn't accepted. And the reason why it wasn't accepted is because the supervisor believes that if he's going to change positions, it needs to be changed at a compensation level that is equal to or in proximity to what he's currently being compensated. It has nothing to do with the level of compensation that is justified for the position or the role that is going to be filled, or the responsibilities that are going to be filled.
So what
And
compromise?
lastly, I believe that what is best for the community is that we take expenses such as this, which in my opinion are needless in this community, and put them to something that is much more important to our community, and that is heavy and highway and our infrastructure needs, which are woefully inadequate, and that this board has not been addressing for probably the last 5 or 6 years.
So what compromise?
That I offered?
Yeah.
Earlier on
What compromise?
was a compromise in terms of salary. And that was rejected.
When was that?
I'm not supposed to speak to it, but it was at one of our executive sessions when we started first talking about this, all the way back in probably January or February. And this, I would go on and say that this board has been focused on this topic for the last 6 or 7 months. And it has taken away from our productivity, being a productive board and addressing the issues that this community needs to be addressed by this board.
That's why I'm, so.
Such as inter-community agreements that we should be talking about and having resolved by now with the town of Farmington. We've got an intermunicipality agreement with the city of Canandaigua that should be addressed by now. We've got long-term strategic planning issues that should be having workshops regularly from the beginning of this year until now, talking about what we should budget, how much we should budget, where we ought to get the money from to address our infrastructure needs. But instead, no, we don't do that. We go into executive session and we beat this topic up to death continually for the last 6 or 7 months. And we continue to talk about it. And to what benefit? Not to the benefit of the town and the community. Because if we were doing that, we'd be going out and getting an administrative assistant or a clerk that has professional experiences and has education to justify being in a position to address our communication needs with this town. Instead, what we're doing is trying to justify a position for you to go and become the full-time supervisor of this town, so you go out, shake hands and kiss babies on the back of the taxpayers' dollars.
So, first of all, I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
I'm sure you do.
Second, I must not have been at the meeting where you talked about.
I'm
me
sure you
and
don't
that.
remember that either.
So, okay, John, tone, please. Watch your tone at this meeting. Okay,
I'll
thank you.
speak however I want. Thank you.
Okay, but tone of dignity and decorum is necessary,
Mhm,
and I would appreciate that. Okay, because that also has slipped.
mhm.
And that won't slip anymore. To answer that question, I just wanna, because I think this issue continues to be beaten. You know, and I think the horse has died multiple times. But I remember before when I was running, and there was a board member who was on the board, not on the board at the time, made a comment that, how can you do what you're doing because the town business gets done during the day? So in that regard, for someone to be in an elected position, for what you're saying, I guess, they have to be independently wealthy or retired. So I would say that by making statements like that, we are excluding a significant portion of the population of this town. Because I know many people who are not independently wealthy. I wish I were. I wish I could give all my money back, but I can't. Or are retired. So, and I'm neither. So we will leave it at that, and we will continue. Jody?
Thank you. I have 3 items that I would like to bring up. You just mentioned tone. There was a vote taken the other night regarding your salary. It was 2-1. No one heard you say that the vote did not carry, nor did you explain why. We left that meeting thinking the vote had carried, we heard the 2-1. It's your responsibility of a chairperson of the committee to follow simply Robert's rules of parliamentary procedure, that you announce whether the motion was carried or not in a clear, loud voice. I would prefer to hear somebody like John rather than what happened the other night, leaving us befuddled, confused, and with a very poor perception of what happened.
Can I answer that point first? Karen, did you hear the vote?
I have to admit, the other night, I did not hear the vote.
Mhm,
However, I had since listened to the recording, and yes, you did say it.
mhm.
However, the recording was turned up quite loud, so I can't say whether it's my own hearing aids or whether it was,
May I just finish?
Mhm.
We don't need to argue about whether anybody heard it or not. It's on the recording, I get that, but you're just lecturing somebody about tone. you, as the conductor of this meeting, should have clearly explained why the motion didn't carry. That's point number one. The second point is, it sounds like that we have an HR problem that you're trying to solve by just saying, let's just have one person do it all. Hire professional services as we were supposed to do in our guide. $72,000 could hire a lot of professional services, a full-time or part-time person. Or to my next point is this. There was a joint meeting of the town and city last night addressing supper program. There, Kevin Ovani gave a professional assessment of what is needed to mitigate this flooding problem that directly affects the constituents, your constituents that you serve. The city and town needs to build line items in their annual budgets for mitigation projects. $150,000 each was discussed in that meeting. We need to be ready to respond to grant-funded projects with the required local funding match. Ramp up zoning and regulatory parameters for future development projects, taking impact on entire watershed into account. Be ready with an emergency management plan, countywide, but individual jurisdictions, and host a follow-up meeting with public input. Several residents who I know personally flooded in the town. No, nobody got water up to their waist like the people on Chapin and Gibson in the city, but this is equally important that we work with the town and add this to our already overburdened budget, because this directly affects our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I don't see any hands online. All right, should we go through and start with page 82?
You want to start with PJ, sure, you want to jump right to special districts?
I'd like
You're-
to jump to special.
Jump to
districts.
special districts, okay, perfect.
Okay. So then if we could maybe start, just kind of following the book along, and for everybody, I'll share Zoom in just a second. Maybe we start with page 33, which is fire. I think
Okay.
the first of our special districts. Just a second, for those of you on Zoom, I'll just share our screen.
For 30.
It's tab 5 in your book, tab number 5. Orange-ish. Like the big binder.
No, big binder took up too much room.
It is a big binder.
It is. a good-
Last year, it was a nice little bound thing.
It was, well, I actually was chided by the highway superintendent this year for not having a professional bound budget. And I said to him, I reuse binders on purpose
Yeah.
because I want everybody to be frugal with money to invest in
you know,
infrastructure and highway.
I love,
So-
these are awesome and very.
I'll go get
Actually, I
you.
think I said, Doug, I said, next year I expect safety orange right.
Right.
I'll go buy you 3 of those rings so you can ring it all together, and you get safety orange.
Maybe, so actually, maybe the best way to, we can go back and forth between the spreadsheet, I guess, and that, and what you're actually looking at here in the budget. So you're looking in your budget book, page 33, I talk about the fire protection district, right? We've touched on this a little bit here. The big thing is the cost is going up per our contract, our new contract that was put into place with the town board approved last year, really for the next 3 years. And that's really what this page kind of highlights. You can see it here in terms of the chart and the cost continuing to go up for fire protection services. For 2024, that's the contract and the budget that we would be talking about. The contract calls for us to pay the city of Canandaigua $975,000. And yes, there's caveats with that. They have to have, as part of that, they have to have 18 full-time firefighters plus the fire chief. And the Cheshire Fire Department, $780,000. And overall, you see that's an 18% increase. Here on the little spreadsheet, I'll just flip over to this for a quick second. This year, it's an 8% increase for the city of Canandaigua, and it's a 32% increase for Cheshire Fire Department. I know those are big numbers. Both fire departments are really facing challenges with cost of equipment, cost of supplies. They've shared that with us when we negotiated both contracts last year. The city of Canandaigua obviously continues to provide additional full-time career firefighters, and it increased that number now to 18 plus the fire chief. You know, the cost of employment, the cost of personnel services continues to go up, and those are some of the challenges that they certainly have faced as they fill those roles. They do have now 18 firefighters plus the fire chief. That's all in place per our contract, so that's all. But you see here, I mean, clearly the little graphic chart at the bottom of that page, there on page 34, shows kind of where we've been, and this is a substantial increase. Additionally, I showed here in the next chart kind of two different comparisons here. The overall cost, that's page 35. The overall cost of fire protection and where we've been and kind of where we're going through the next couple of years with the contract. And then the bottom figure there is, for the first time ever, well, since I'm aware of anyway, fire protection costs are actually outpacing the general highway fund tax. That's a good place for it, right? Those of you in the room just saw, people on Zoom don't know, we had a sign on the wall that just fell off and fell directly into the trash can. So, anyway, so the fire protection costs are actually outpacing on a rate per thousand at 86 cents per thousand. The tentative budget proposed at 78 cents per thousand. So happy to answer any questions on that one.
So when the sales tax comes in again this year, last year we applied some of the sales tax funding toward the fire budget. Do you think we'd have a possibility of doing that again, just to bring that rate down a little bit?
I actually don't recommend it. Let me
Okay.
tell you why. But last year we did appropriate $100,000. You see here on the chart on the Excel spreadsheet. I don't recommend it unless you're going to continue to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got out year situations here, and that's what I'm showing you, where that's going to continue to go up. Those costs are going to continue to go up, and you've got out year tax rates for 25 of 95 cents, and then for 26 of $1 per thousand. Unless you're going to continuously subsequently fund it through sales tax, you don't want a huge tax spike for the residents, right? And a huge impact. So it's better to do a little bit at a time. We already last year had a significant increase, and that's why we put the $100,000 in. Additionally, this budget, based on our meetings, our finance meetings, as you know, really substantially increases the sales tax contribution to the general and highway fund. And I really would not recommend appropriating any sales tax here unless you take it away from the general and highway fund, which you're gonna have to offset that. So
I think the benefit there and of that appropriation, when we did that, in my mind, is I know that they were discussing, you know, we had both discussing votes and other things, you know, trying to help with some of those other hopefully one-off expenses that they were gonna have.
I would put in here my yearly plug, and Terry's probably tired of me saying this, but, and I continue to say it to John Goodwin also. The city of Canandaigua is really, for our area, the only career fire department that is actively responding, and more often than not, the first rig, and I'm not knocking Cheshire, and I don't mean in the Cheshire area, but like, for instance, in Farmington, I know of many instances in this past year where the city crew out of Uptown was the first crew on the scene into the town of Farmington, not the Farmington Volunteer Fire Department. I know of situations in Hopewell where the city rig was the first one coming over the line, you know, and it happens. And And they are not contributing anything to the cost of financial service operations of the city's career fire department that we are all as a region depending on. So I always say, it'd be nice if the county contributed something, since it is a regional facility and asset for our greater community, or these other individual communities, I feel like should be stepping up a little bit to help. That I'll get off my soapbox.
So this, but the city is the one who needs to be requesting that from them, other than us also help selling, advocating for that.
We can't,
Because
go to them and
otherwise,
demand
the
it.
money is coming really from the
We're
city and town taxpayers.
we're subsidizing
Subsidizing
neighboring
it, yeah.
communities.
But in our case, when you look at the previous page, there's 2,241 calls that the city made in the town.
Correct.
Cheshire did 538, so the city is almost 4 times
Yeah.
the number of responses. So they're huge numbers in history, because they are getting the service.
Mhm.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely.
Anything else on fire? We might as well just keep rolling then. Page 36 is the Uptown Business Improvement District. This doesn't have, what I would say, a lot in forward 24. Just gonna jump over to the chart here. Basically holds the line, keeps it the same as 25, where we levied $105,400. Anticipation here that we would have some expenses for lighting. We would have the beautification type expenses, the same things that we did previously. You know that we did put in, originally we put in money for a bond anticipation note, anticipating that we would be doing lighting in the 23 budget. We ended up taking that out. We still did levy the $105,500 last year against the district, which equated to a $1.91 tax rate for those parcels that are in the Uptown Business Improvement District. This budget proposes a $1.57 tax rate, keeping that levy the same. Also, the tax bill would go up for the average parcel in the Uptown Business Improvement District by $158.34. So just so you know, the average parcel now in that district is assessed at $656,000.
You know, it's 102 units are primarily businesses.
Right. The single,
individual.
the residential was excluded specifically out of the Uptown Business Improvement District. So this would all be commercial. So keep in mind, even things like Uptown Landing, which is residential, is technically a commercial operation. So the property owner for the commercial operation would be assessed and they would be paying into it. Let's face it, we all know they're gonna back charge it in the rent there somehow, but it's only assessed on commercial operations.
Those both of the, we'll call the average residents in the town are not experiencing, other than perhaps paying a little bit more for cost of goods. An impact.
Any other questions on that?
So we're still budgeting $75,000 for a van for next year.
This budget has $75,000 under a contractual, 85,10,400, I believe. Do you have the line item in front of you? Is it, what is it? Is it different than that?
Yeah.
85,10,400 is 15,000, and then the ban is 75.
I'm sorry, it must just be off a
Yeah.
line here. So the band, the 75,000 is in there. This just must be removed there. But it's the same number overall, 105,000. So keep in mind, we did just approve going out the bid for the street lights. So that's what the next page
Jim.
here,
Jim, can you adjust the temperature?
Oh, yeah.
It's getting freezing.
the next
People are
page
bringing
is-
blankets to our meeting.
Thank you.
Page 37, here's the next page. That's just the tax cap. We've talked about that. This budget is not.
Thanks,
tax
Jim.
cap compliant. And that's the formula that, I'll just show you that page here. This is the tax cap form that we have to submit to the New York State Comptroller's Office. This is page 40 of the budget, and these are all the calculations that go into making that what it is, and all the different stuff and exclusions and blah, 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 blah. So,
And just confirming again, if we took out fire and water, it would be tax cap compliant.
well, it's all the special
Oh, all the
districts,
special
right?
districts.
So, yeah, the general highway fund is tax cap compliant, but the rest of it is what, it's over by the $680,000, so. Okay, should we jump to some of the?
Do you wanna hit the fund balance real quick, just so
Sure.
we can
Mhm.
share that?
So that's page 42 here, the budget. So this graph here shows where we've been, where we're kind of going in fund balance. The town board did appropriate, I believe it was $1.5 million in fund balance earlier this year to fund 2 capital projects. $1 million for highway improvements and $500,000 for complete streets or those types of improvements. So that does reduce the unassigned fund balance. Generally, what has been happening is the department heads have actually been doing a really good job of managing their budgets over the years. And as sales tax had been coming in higher than what was budgeted, and the fact that folks like Jim don't actually end up spending all the money that they think they need because they're very frugal, that's how the fund balance has actually grown over the last couple of years to the point where it was getting to where it was. And you see, for the audit that we had just completed, they had estimated that our fund balance, or they figured our fund balance was $5.2 million at the time. Now, since then, we've taken 1.5 million out. There's appropriations that come out of that and everything. And so I'm estimating the fund balance to do it be at 2.9 million. There's still, for the general fund, there's still money there. And I know that there's other projects that you are considering where that's gonna, you're gonna need to tap into some of that as we move forward. But you see kind of where we're going, and you see there is a noticeable change for 24 in fund balance for all of them. And I guess that's the theme when you look at this long-term strategy in terms of like even for instance, the general fund, and you start to look at fund balance and where that's going in the out years, the more we have to appropriate in fund balance, and those are these numbers right here, that's going to lower this number down here, which is the unassigned fund balance, as that tax rate continues to increase. And so, you just need to be mindful of it overall in terms of where we're going and what we're spending that on and pay attention to that.
That's gonna decrease as we go forward in those other years, 25 through 28. It's gonna shrink dramatically in order to try to preserve and lower the property tax rate.
Now, things like, for instance, I know Adeline mentioned this as a finance committee, Jess and I have constant conversations with the banks and our investment companies that we work with, and we make a deliberate effort to get as much interest income coming in as we can. And we play this game with the banks. We call it the game with the banks all the time of we're going to get the best interest rate for the next 2 weeks or the next 30 days or the next 45 days or 60 or 90. And we're continuously doing that and looking at that. And
It's
that
been
has
amazing,
generated,
yeah.
well, overall across all funds this year, it's about $400,000 in interest income that's come into the town that otherwise we wouldn't have received this year. And the Feds just announced yesterday, interest rates are going to stay the same. They didn't lower them, they didn't increase them. But even that comes into play with that conversation on what we do. And so we just renewed a bond for 14 days. Or a CD, I'm sorry, we renewed a CD for 14 days because we weren't 100% sure what the Feds were going to do. And now we know. Now we can play the game a little bit more with that. And we do that kind of stuff all the time. And so.
Well, just to
and-
get us past, I'm sure they
Yeah.
past the,
And how many
Defense.
millions are we investing in the, I mean, it's, we
Right
see it
now,
every
I
month.
think it's
Five.
and a half.
5.5,
Yeah,
6, yeah.
It's, so it's, I
Yeah.
mean,
But
14
that's
days
spread
is
across all funds. right?
making a lot of
So-
money in 14 days.
But then that interest income has to go back to who owns the money, right? So keep in mind, all of these special districts, all of these funds, the reserve funds, the general fund, the highway fund, they all own a piece of that pie. We get to play with the big pie with the banks, but then everybody still gets their slice. So if we generate $10,000 in interest income, and for instance, 8,000 of that goes to the general fund, 2,000 of that may have, 1,000 may have to go to the highway fund, 1,000 may have to go to the open space fund, so forth and so on. And then we then have to appropriate that back to those places. So that is fund balance. Anything else on that? These next series of pages, I got a Wayne, I had to use the picture of Wayne, I grabbed the
Yeah.
picture, and really, the highway department, and I know Lindsay's on listening upstairs, by Zoom, but the highway and parks departments have done, they continue to do such an incredible job for us all over everywhere. This particular photo is the paving of the pathway at Outhouse Park. This pathway at Outhouse Park, since it's been paved, gets used so much. I usually come by it almost every morning about 7:30, 8 o'clock, whatever. I can't tell, more often than not, there's people out there at that time walking that pathway. You see it all day long. You see any series of age ranges. I've seen people that need assistance using it and those types of things. And there's no way we could have done that without the highway department, Jim and Wayne, and the whole crew, Chris Litz and everybody doing that type of stuff. There's just no way that we could have possibly financially afforded to do that type of thing. And so we're very, very fortunate to have our own Canandaigua construction crew that goes out and does all the things they do for us for parks and everything else. All right, should we jump to, let's see. Maybe we jump into drainage districts. Maybe it's kind of a start. This might be easier if we just kind of look at the chart here as opposed to going through the pages. These things tend to be small, but we can kind of still talk about what's going on. So this first one with Jim's help here. So this first one is the Route 332 drainage district. The Route 332 drainage district, that basically is incorporating Uptown and really all the way up past that. But Jim has been doing some work the last couple of years. This budget is relatively flat with last year's. There is some money that's kind of been encumbered. I'll give you a page number here in a second where it's at in the initial chart, but Jim, anything you want to?
So last year, the camera, the half of pipes to inspect it because they are metal, that the plastic are not sprayed and galvanized. So I was trying to see the deterioration or any blockage because you really can walk through if you crouch all over. They're that size of a pipe through there that carries water to those facilities for the business to go to our pond before it discharges more. We have some minor street cleaning to do. We have an inlet structure that needs to be upgraded. That's just concrete wise, it's just falling apart over the years. And we gotta clean the stream in Blue Heron Park. The discharge of the pond to Fire Hall Road is overgrown with trees. Needs to be cleaned out so the trees don't take over the capacity of the actual stream. Willows, scrub brush, those things.
I don't know if you heard Jess or not, page 86 is where your account is. A lot of people don't really realize that the pond at Blue Heron Park actually is the drainage facility for the Route 332 drainage district, so that's where the water goes. I know 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had another substantial rainstorm. It was a Thursday night. I remember I was leaving here and Fort was out the back door, and 332 was actually completely flooded. Cars were actually having to stop and four ways on and everything else. That whole area in front of the car washes and that type area, that's a low spot. And all of that water has to drain into the DIs that then goes into the system that Jim is talking about, that then makes its way to the pond and then eventually flows to the north to, eventually it works its way to the outlet, right? Yeah, over and then up, but it's all connected. It's an integral part of the system to get water during these heavy rain events flowing north and then to the outlet. Any questions on any of that?
Which one is this?
All right, this one is the Lakewood Meadows
yeah.
Drainage District.
We're just building fund balance in that right now.
Yep. No really improvements, but we do expect, I think, maybe 25 or 26.
We'll have to see on that pond out by Charlie Cross.
So what you see here is this is the estimated fund balance number here on the chart in red, 25,000. So technically that's more than we should have for that particular fund balance policy. but because we know of planned improvements, that's in keeping with our policy, and so that's what that number is that we're charging there. So the impact is the same as last year. It's $3. These drainage districts, I should also say, are per unit charges. These are not ad valorem charges. So these are per unit charges. So that district has 644 units. So, this next one, this is the Ashton Drainage District. There's nothing there. This is just interest income that we're showing, coming in and going out with no improvements. 73 units. This next one is the Fox Bridge Drainage District. Now, this one, I think you actually do have some improvements.
There's an antiquated outflow structure that uses I call it dip tube. The dip tube moves too much with ice, and then it doesn't keep the capacity low enough when it's needed. So we're gonna replace the structure so that it's always at the right level of water, instead of messing around with this older dip tube system.
So on page 88, you actually see that reflected, that $32,000 constitutes of the $32,120 that you see there from a contractual expense. 12,000 of that is pond outflow structure work, and then 20,000 swale work. And then you see the $120 in interest income that comes in. Obviously, to make a balanced budget, I have to have an offset, the revenue versus an expense. So we added it to that. Let's say come up with that total of that 32,120.
The numbers don't show up in our,
Page 88. Page 88 at the top of the page.
I mean, but you're getting red.
Your fund balance.
No, that's
numbers do
the
not.
policy.
And,
That's not.
No,
No,
they
that's
don't
not
print in this, no.
but they give you a picture though. So,
I know, but the fund balance is a separate report. There's no way to put it in the budget worksheets. That's why I do that, so you can see what's happening there.
I think you need new software, Doug.
No, I want to retire before this town goes through a financial software conversion.
And honestly, I don't think it would matter anyway,
Yeah,
because it's a different,
it's a different, yeah.
it's an
We get it.
accounting thing. They don't show up on the same.
County's getting a new one, why not?
That was a nightmare. But yes, that does show appropriation of fund balance to help that, and then that draws that down. I mean, that's exactly what you need to know. We're using about $20,000 in fund balance. Well, $21,528 in fund balance to pay for that. So,
yeah, I mean, show me half the picture.
well, the revenue is listed. You see it, it's actually on page 87, the revenue there.
Yeah.
And so you see the appropriation there of 21,528, bottom of page 87.
The only thing that's missing is where we fit within our fund balance policy.
Correct.
Whether we're over or whether we're green, which means we're within the policy.
I could invent a software. Make a lot of money.
Make an app.
Spare time.
All right, Landings Drainage District, no improvements there. That's just interest income coming and going. Same for Old Brookside, right? Lakeside Drainage District, same thing, no improvements there. With that, next one is Waterford Point Drainage District. There's no improvements there. That's just, again, trying to keep that relatively the same. This is same thing. This is a unit charge. This actually lowers the unit charge from $10 to $5 and continues to slowly build up fund balance. And we're well within the fund balance policy up to 10,000 because you don't have any planned improvements there right now, right?
Can I ask how we figure out, like Waterford Point and Lake Meadows are adjoining drainage districts? And, for example, I know when you dredge the pond behind me, for example, how do you determine which district gets charged for that?
That one pond is over in the what's the other one called?
Waterford Point and
Thank
Lake
you,
Meadows.
Waterford Point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how you determine,
They're mapped.
it's mapped
It's
straight up on
mapped
the
with
district. So,
And
okay,
then
I wasn't-
the tax map number has that designation, and so the assessor's office then actually designates those parcels that are in that. The other thing that this spreadsheet does, I just want to show you, and this is one of the reasons why I really like doing the spreadsheets in addition to the budget, the accounting software, is we're able to go back and do comparisons and catch things. And I'll give you an example here. A few years ago, when I was working on the budget, I saw that there was a big jump in the increased number of units in the Lakewood Meadows Drainage District. And you see there at 2022, it was 764, and in 2023, it was 644. And the reason is this: the townhomes, when they were constructed in the Lakewood Meadows Drainage District, were inadvertently added to this drainage district, and they're not part of this district. They're their own entity. And so then I had to get the assessor's office to back those back out. And then it brought it to the 644, and that's where it's supposed to be. So the final drainage district is the Stablegate Drainage District, and Jim does have some improvements planned there.
That's our outflow structure that needs to have, I'll call it trash rack for lack of a better term, because prevailing west winds push seaweed, brush, leaves into the current, and it plugs. And then it doesn't drain correctly, it doesn't have the correct storage.
This is the property that I had identified.
Yes, yeah.
So this will be a tax levy to the residents that are in the Stablegate Drainage District. They haven't had one for a while. This is $19 per unit. The average parcel, the average home would end up paying $57. So it's an increase, but for that one. Any questions on that? Sewer district, since we're right there in that same portion of the town, sewer district, it's Purdy Mobile Road Sewer District. This is basically the same. We were able to get a low interest loan when we did that sewer district that has a debt service payment of $18,210 per year. And so that's what this is. So that stays the same. 34 units. It actually decreased a unit because of change in properties up there. And so there is a small increase for the average home there, $535 per year is what they would pay. We jump to lighting and then we'll jump into water. So we get to lighting quickly. The first one here is the Centerpoint Lighting District. This is just basically the utility bills. So it's $1,922. Keep in mind, every single one of these is their own budget. So this budget is $1,922 for 24. Up a little bit, utility costs have increased. We want to make sure we have enough there. We have been doing better with interest income, so we've doubled the interest income from $6 to $12 in the district. And then the average, you see here the averages in terms of the assessed value of the district had a pretty substantial increase in the assessed value for that district. Over here, the average parcel there, and then the increase. So the district went from 16.4 million to 29.3 million, with the average parcel being assessed for 4.1 million. This is predominantly Centerpoint. This would be Custos, the golf course, the townhomes, and the apartments that home. But I believe the lighting district is primarily Custos.
Yeah.
And that's the only real benefit.
That's the Centerpoint one.
Yeah. The next one here is the Fox Ridge Lighting District. Again, you see all the similar type of information here. The district assessed value went from 44.4 million to 62.9 million. So the average home ends up paying, these are just utility costs. The average home ends up paying $14 more for the 24 budget than what they paid for the 23 budget. And again, that's predominantly due to the increase in assessed value and the increase in utility costs, not substantial, just a couple of $100. And that takes the tax rate you see from 29 cents to 24 cents because of the increase in the assessed value. We're able to lower that. Any questions on that? Next one, Landings Lighting District. There's nothing there. It's just interest income. Landings, quite a few years ago, I shouldn't say quite a few, about 4 or 5 years ago, we had a pretty big discussion about that lighting district and what was being done and what it was and what entailed or not entailed. And, there's no charge there. That district continues to have $1,200 in fund balance that just sits there. Approximately. So. Lakewood Meadows Lighting District is the next one here. Again, you see a similar type thing. The assessed value of the district increased 75.1 million to 98.3 million. The average home increased from 22 to 291, and lowering or keeping the tax rate the same at a penny. I really can't go less than a penny. Increases, the average home increases $2.80.
Gotta fix the light bulb.
I know, I saw that.
The final lighting district is the Fallbrook Park Lighting District. Same thing, district assessed value went from 34.5 million to 47 million. And this one, no, this is just utility costs, right?
Yeah.
So this is a $12 increase. That actually lowers the tax rate from 5 cents to 4 cents with the increased assessed value and everything to make that up there. It's a $12 increase for the average home. Any questions on lighting, drainage? All right, let's jump to water. Water's the fun. We talked about Canandaigua Bristol the other night, so I won't spend a lot of time on that unless you have questions on that, but that is a increase again for the average parcel there. The per unit charge, $187. The tax rate remaining the same as it was last year at 69 cents per thousand. The average home in the town of Canandaigua would see a $34 increase versus last year. There's no questions on that. I'll jump on to the next one. So this is Canandaigua Farmington District. Move that over so everybody can see it. So as we all know, Canandaigua Farmington Water District is getting ready to go through a substantial increase due to a need to replace the Brickyard Road water tank. This expense of $287,000 to the town of Farmington is an estimate that I had based on some very preliminary conversations with Supervisor Inglesby. That's where I came up with the 287 number. He came back to me with a number that might be a little bit less than that. And I know we have a meeting, I believe it's October 10th, was it? Joint meeting, I believe. Was it the 11th?
Yeah, it's somewhat a separate.
The 10th is, well, it's the 10th, I think, because
Yeah,
the
we
9th
have the
is,
11th here.
The ninth,
the 9th is,
sure.
He came back to me with a number of 275, and I'll tell you what I said to him. I said to him, I said, Supervisor, you might be better off going ahead and leaving a little bit higher, because we know that there's going to be a continued increase in the out years and trying to step it a little bit instead of the taxpayers of the Canandaigua Farmington District facing such a huge increase when that new water tank comes online. That district, you see it increased in assessed value from 248 million to 342 million. And even at my number at 287, the average homeowner would be paying about $80 more in 24 than they paid in 23 in terms of the taxes. That lowers the tax rate from 89 cents to 84 cents based on the new assessed value for it. But it's still going to be an increase. But I fully anticipate in 25 or 26 that tax rate to be about $1 based on those future costs of that new water tank. And so that's why I think we need to be stepping that up instead of bringing that back down over the next couple of years, so we don't have such a dramatic increase. Any questions on that one? You'll see for comparison in a minute. So just keep in mind that district is 85 cents per thousand. When we get to Canandaigua Consolidated, I'll revisit that for comparison. Andrews Road Water District, we combined that with Canandaigua Farmington last year, so that's right there. McIntyre Road Water District is the next one. And again, these tend to be small districts. It was assessed for 3.9 million. It goes to 4.9 million with the reval able to reduce the tax rate from $1.84 to $1.71. Because of that, it's still an increase of $67 for the average home in that district with the assessed value. And the other thing that's going on here is I think we have expenses.
Yeah, I was asking
Yeah.
for to repaint fire hydrants.
That's what it was. So we need to talk about that for a quick second. So just your application.
99.
Are you doing McIntyre now?
Yes. So you see the difference on the bottom of page 99, services and maintenance costs. The department head request was 9,500 and the tentative budget has 3988. And there was a request for sandblasting, just unfortunately, this just shows the tentative and not, but I think you had asked for 9,500 for sandblasting.
Yeah, sandblasting repeat.
Right, and I have 3,000 in here. The problem is, if we were to increase this cost by an additional $6,000, and I'm just gonna do this real time so you can see, so add 6,000 to 8451, so that'd be 14,451, I guess is what it would be, right? All of a sudden, the average home was paying an extra $400. Right, and so that's one of the problems that we run into with these small districts is trying to find the, trying to find the balance of what can we do and then how do we do it, right? And this is where I keep saying to you guys, we need to have some conversations about our policies, how much we're charging, how much we're paying back to Canandaigua Consolidated for administration services and all those types of things, and really laying out capital improvements, because there's such a small amount of assessed value and there's only 13 or 15. Yeah, 13 it looks like parcels in this district. It has a tremendous impact even to do something like that.
Can I ask Jim, why do we sandblast the fire hydrants?
When we hand bob them, it kills off.
Mhm.
Doesn't adhere, and 2 years later, they look like crap.
So it's also an appearance issue.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's a hygiene, you don't want. You wanna maintain, well, first of all, I gotta maintain it, it's getting sprayed by salt all winter.
Mhm.
From road spray, and the other
the
thing is,
town.
we have to, if we don't make sure the caps are free and the stem is free. The need, and in the need of the moment, it's gonna look really bad for the town that their seeds done.
So you just indicated two things from the town as a whole. Is this something that we could also help fund with some of our contingent tax reserve?
No,
No,
it's
it's
a
a
special
special
district.
I know, because it's a special district, but if it's the town as a whole. I mean,
No,
it's-
there's,
No, it's not town's whole, it's a separate.
it's separate.
I know, but our plowing is affecting it, and, I'm just wondering if there's another way
It's a
around
good
it
way
that
of
we
looking
can
at it,
help. Help it out in a smaller district like that, because it's not a big hit for a large thing like the town, but it's an enormous hit for 12 to 13 houses, so.
So even like the $3,000 that is in this tentative budget, which doesn't give him what he asked for, maybe he can do some, and that's the type of conversation we always have, right? But even that takes $3,000 from fund balance, lowering the district's fund balance from 3,700 to 1,500, right? And so that is one of the good things about having a little bit, if we continue to try to put a little bit away into these fund balance in these special districts, so.
What about a little ARPA? I mean, we used ARPA for the sewer district at KR 28. I mean, my point is, this is a really small number you're looking for, $6,000.
I
So,
get it, but on the other hand, you're gonna provide a benefit to one.
no,
of the
I
special
know, but I
districts
feel
and
like,
not the
I
town.
mean,
It's-
my argument, that's why I asked Jim to explain it first. My argument is that some of the damage is happening because of townwide activities of plowing. And it's hygiene and appearance as well, which is townwide as well. I use McIntyre Road.
It's a nice way, I would think.
I mean, that's.
How much debt is left in it?
It's
I
gotta be somewhat close down.
I don't have the number. to-
There's 2007-ish, we put
How much?
that in, 2005, 2007,
2,000,
maybe 15 more years.
$2,000 left.
No,
No, I'm just saying a
the
year.
year we put in was like 2005
Oh,
or 6, so it was probably a 30-year note,
30.
so probably another 15 years.
I just
You
wanted
don't
to
have that.
Paid it off.
That's
bring it into the consolidated. Offer benefit,
I think
that's
that's,
still fairly high.
it is, but that's the type of conversation I would like to have with you guys where we can talk about all these, because there's like 5 or 6 of them in the same category
Mhm.
that we need to talk about what we do administratively and everything else and long-term strategic planning for them. So this one and this one in particular, and there's a couple like this where Jim asked for money for fire hydrant, you see the huge impact that it has, and so.
I would still say the same argument from before, I mean, I don't know. I think there are some times where we've adjusted special districts or with some town funds, but
Great. Do you want to keep talking about this one, or are we good to move on? Move on, okay. Emerson Allen Road Water District, this is also operated by the town of Farmington, this is on the north end of town. This just factors in the same exact increase as the other one. This would be about a $35 increase for the average homeowner. You see again, the assessed value went from 5.4 million to 7.5 million, and the tax rate would lower from 342 per thousand to 259 per thousand. There's 30 parcels in that district. So nothing there other than just the standard operations and maintenance. The next one here is County Road 30 Water District. Again, just kind of doing the same thing here. Overall district assessed value went from 3.9 million to 5.1 million. The average home sees an increase of about $159. This is a big one. There's not a lot here in fund balance. This has some contractual expenses.
Fire hydrants,
Fire hydrants.
Sandblasting.
Same thing.
sandblasting.
Be fun to do.
Well, it's not that it's not fun, it's just that you don't properly get the paint to stick to existing paint that's on there, and it peels off in a short enough time. So there are two colors. Along the lake, people really don't appreciate that. And you know, like, it looks like crap. So,
Give them a can of spray paint. They'll come with it.
well, I'm just saying, people do notice, people do appreciate that the hydrants are maintained. They feel
so,
confident that in a need, they're available.
We want them high visibility.
well, again, I think that's a townwide benefit.
All right, the next water district is the same exact situation. Again, he's trying to do fire hydrant stuff. So the overall district went from 8.5 million to 12.3 million. The tax rate is actually proposed in the tentative budget to go from $1.44 to $1.48, 4-cent increase, but that equates to $119 increase for that average water district user. Again, that's $5,000, makes up that difference of that increase. The other thing that's going to be going on here, and this is why I keep saying we have to have this bigger conversation. I do believe that all of these special districts should be paying more to Canandaigua Consolidated for the administration. These are child districts, the parent district being Canandaigua Consolidated. They really, I don't believe, have proportionately paid in for the increase in the debt service costs that was taken on by Canandaigua Consolidated to support these child districts. And that's why I say we need to have this overall conversation. So I realize this is an increase, but I think you're gonna have to increase it anyway. So whether it's for fire hydrants this year or reallocating that formula on how they make contributions, I think they're gonna have to go up anyway.
Jim, how far off is that at this point? I mean,
We,
the difference between what they should be bringing in and what they are.
you know,
Well, we have to do a water analysis to figure it out.
yeah, I cannot answer that off the top of the head for you.
With that, that's gonna involve some time and some analysis on what the cost of water is for delivery services and we gotta work with Jim on that. We gotta work with, with the financing situations and everything. All right, the next one is the Hickox Road Water District, similar 1.7 million to 2.4 million. This one, there's no real improvements. This one has been dealing with an issue for as long as I know, as long as I've been doing the budget. It basically, it was just done, right?
Well, so, well, chairs are here, but like for John and Caroline, 2011 had a barn fire on County Road 30. What that did was it drew the water level down below 20 PSI for safe drinking water standards for an extended period of time. The Department of Health said, look, you need to put in this 12-inch water main from 21 back to County Road 32 because your system wasn't looped enough to provide water going north. That includes East Bloomfield. So the town had to take, the consolidated paid for it in this, on Hickox Road. And the residents are basically paying the, debt back at that time, whatever the threshold was for audit control, say $900 a year.
No, it's, well, so what we actually did my first year as town manager, we actually created a policy because there was no policy.
Okay.
In an agreement between Hickox Road Water District and Canandaigua Consolidated, the town board adopted it. And the Hickox Road Water District pays Canandaigua Consolidated $2,500 a year. And you see, that's actually, they have a negative fund balance. It was originally $33,582. And they pay Canandaigua Consolidated $2,500 a year and they still owe $17,604. That's why that's showing a negative fund balance, because they pay that $2,500 every single year to Canandaigua Consolidated to reimburse Canandaigua Consolidated for
Was that a 30-year agreement then, or?
No, it was, I think it's
It's,
15 or something or other, whatever it works out to, just in terms of, we're just trying to make it so that it wasn't so crazy astronomical for those residents to repay that, so. There, you see here, their cost to taxpayer is $214, so that's up $3 from the previous year.
So when that debt is paid,
Yes,
you can roll that
Yes.
district into the consolidated.
yes, that's exactly.
The advantage to, like going back to that sandblasting for Canandaigua Consolidated to loan $3,000 to a small district and pay it back over 15, whatever number of years are left on the debt, a little bit each year, so they could get that job done, but not such a big increase.
Yeah, you absolutely could do that. That's where I would recommend a policy that allows us to do those types of things, and then we could just charge the district for it, even if the district had a negative fund balance. That's a finance that we'll track and chart, and we'll make it up in future budget years. But it would be good from a policy perspective to have that ironed out first. And then,
So haven't we loaned before?
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
just
right
talking
there.
about.
But,
Good example.
yeah, but. I mean, it's there, so why? I mean, this has been going on for years, right? The loan, just the kind of loaning back and forth.
I think
Yeah,
what
well,
we like to do is put something in writing. that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can do two, do from.
Yeah.
It's a little,
We need to have,
we
yeah,
have a little policy in there.
we need
so-
to, definitely need to have that ironed out.
I think it'd kind of be nice to integrate a way to build their fund balance first for service and maintenance in the future.
well, that's what the fund balance policy says. That's exactly what it says.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's hard when
But
you're so
sometimes-
small.
Right.
Well, either way, they're gonna
But
be
it's-
paying it back.
Correct,
Right,
It's just the rate at which they pay
Mhm.
it back.
exactly.
We charge
It's-
better interest to ourselves, is that what you're saying?
Well,
So, we have an example.
Charge
of that
any
here in
interest.
just a second.
Friendlier.
We'll show you that.
it's just,
you know,
it is something to consider in future special times to integrate, yeah.
The next one here is the Knott Road Water District, so there's nothing really planned here, this is just, normal operations. The district went from 2.3 million in assessed value to 3 million, the average, property pays $417, that's an increase of $34 in that special district. The next one here is County Road 32 Water District. This one is exactly what you guys were just talking about. We intentionally loaned this district the money from Canandaigua Consolidated. There's actually a loan agreement between Canandaigua Consolidated and County Road 32 Water District that includes an amortization schedule, that includes interest payments and everything else the way it should have been done. We did that in 2019. And specifically, this district is paying, has debt service principal and interest that's due to Canandaigua Consolidated every single year. Now, if Canandaigua Consolidated ever gotten to a point where it needed the money, I mean, this is $48,000, but let's say they did need the money, we could easily do a bond for this district and let it stand on its own and then recoup and then pay off Canandaigua Consolidated and just let them have the debt. But the thought process being here, why not let the Canandaigua Consolidated earn the interest in what the interest, that was the interest rate at that time, that's the way it was written up. So that the Canandaigua Consolidated has that revenue coming in instead of it going to a bank. And the average home you see here pays $1,100 a year. for water for that. And that's a $3 increase over last year. All right. We've been hitting all around it. Canandaigua Consolidated. Here's the granddaddy of them all. I want to just, because it goes back to our other conversation, I just want to show you something here real quick. And I'll scroll back up on this to Canandaigua Farmington. Canandaigua Farmington is assessed for $342 million, okay, with an 84-cent tax rate, and there's 849 parcels. All right, 342, there's 800 parcels, 342 million. Let me scroll down here all the way to the bottom to Canandaigua Consolidated, just to show you a comparison here. And I gotta scroll over here. All right, we're in the green. Canandaigua Consolidated, assessed value 1.265 million. There are 2,961 parcels.
Billion.
Brilliant.
I'm sorry, yes, thank you.
I was gonna say, wait, why is that?
I'm sorry.
I'm like,
1.2
I'm pretty
billion.
sure there's one house,
I-
1.2 million again.
1.2 billion, 2,969 parcels versus 800 parcels, right? 1.2 billion versus 300 million. And we're currently at a tax rate of 70 cents. I do think it's gonna have to go up. We'll see next year, I project 83 cents, which would be also very in keeping, essentially the next couple of years, every one of these water districts for basic just operations and maintenance, you're gonna be right around $1. Whether it's Canandaigua Farmington or Canandaigua Consolidated, that's the direction that they're going. Cost of pipe, equipment, supplies, you know.
Did this include any of the Canandaigua city water agreement thoughts that they
It does.
tossed in there
It
yet?
is. It has $194,000 going this year. Obviously, that may change, but that's what's currently in as the placeholder, because that's what we need at the time.
Okay, that was their request, right?
Yes, yeah, so this is showing that the demand, that'd be the better word, right?
Sorry.
So this shows the tax rate drops from 73 cents to 70 cents. This shows that the average house in the district went from 319 to 427 in this particular district, okay?
This is consolidated, you're talking about?
This Canandaigua Consolidated went from 946 to 1.2. The total tax bill, 234, goes up to 298, which is a $64 increase for the average. When you get into the details of the expenses here, Canandaigua Consolidated, this is where our water personnel live. This is the employees, this is the equipment, this is the debt service, this is the MEOs, you see the insurance. Canandaigua Consolidated pays their own portion of the town's insurance, because when we get our insurance bill, it's for the town-wide as well as the district. And so we had the insurance company, we worked with the insurance company to break out that portion that is the water for the water assets. This is the personnel cost. This is the vacation buyback for the water employees, the HSA, all of that stuff is all factored in here, as well as the overall cost. Probably the big numbers here, purchases, 525.
Yeah, there should be water meters in there.
Did we put the water supervisor salary in this as well?
That should be
Yes,
also.
that's right here. Yep. So I mean, this is basically the cost of essentially doing business and operating the water, and then passing that cost on to those 2,961 parcels that are in the Canandaigua Consolidated Water District.
Now, just to, because I'm sure not everybody's up to speed on what's going on with the city and why they're asking for that 194,000, why that's a separate item that did not exist before. So just to clarify that, previously the city would take capital improvement money. Well, they really weren't taking any capital improvement money, but the theory was capital improvement money would come out of the water rate. And that's how they would try to build that capital reserve fund. It was not happening effectively. They needed more funding for the upcoming work that we all know has to happen to the water treatment facilities. So the theory in the presentation was water rate would drop. But then that assessment, that special assessment of $194,000 would be in there. So as it all washes out, they asked for about a 9% increase. That's about what it is, a 9% increase in what we would be paying for water. They just shifted it to the 194, and then a lower water rate because they're getting the other money somewhere else. For those of you who were not part of the other discussions with that, that's why that has not shown up there before.
And 194 keeps increasing.
Yeah, right.
So 240 through 290.
Right. Because I don't know, the number keeps changing, but it's a huge number for the water treatment
Well,
facility.
there's tank aeration, tank blowers, tank fixers, that
Yeah.
are needed in the 2 concrete tanks. They're looking at rebuilding the tank versus repainting the tank, just due to the fact that by the time they sandblast, repaint, you're kind of at the same price for a new tank. They need to do sealing tubes, dredging chains. They just did an upgrade on chlorine and fluoride. And they need some new high lift pumps, and all the new generator.
So there's a lot.
There's a lot.
There's a lot that runs that water treatment plant and a lot of infrastructure right in that building to keep it up and going.
I think just to show everybody, so it was 1.99 million last year was the total budget for the district. It's, I mean, going up, what, $67,000 and still absorbing that 194,000. So there's not, I mean, there's nothing really extra in there. The difference really is capital equipment. It has to do with the purchase of equipment and trucks and everything else that Jim does specifically for the water department. On the revenue side, the increase in the tax levy there, you see, water sales, 725,000. Again, that's another knob the board has to play with, working with Jim in terms of as we look at these water policies and the cost of water and what is the right rate that we should be charging the residents for, you know, the water sales. And then you have the sales to the other municipalities and all of that stuff, or even like the meter sales, right? And those types of things. You know, are we charging enough for a new water meter to be put in? And all of those types of things. You know, that's where the board's got to work with Jim, and we've really got to work on some analysis in terms of, you know, what are those right numbers? Those are all other valves stuff.
Also in this, part of the $194,000 increase next year at this point. But it's every user, not just us. It's
Right.
correct. Farmington, anyone that gets water through that filtration plant could be paying.
I think they're looking at trying to get 1.5 in there as a jump start and then keep building that.
I know I stepped out for a moment, but when we were talking about Canandaigua Farmington, what is their tax rate increase back to Canandaigua Farmington?
It would be 84 cents for
And-
24.
Okay, and it was at what previously? Cause I'm feeling that we need to build that, you know, for that water tank that's eventually going to be going in up there.
Well, you might miss that. That's exactly what I was explaining. So it was at 89 cents, it drops to 84 cents. But that's 287,000, and that's an estimate that I have. I don't have a final number. You have a meeting with the town of Farmington on, what did we say, October 10th? I believe is what we said. And he had actually estimated a number of 275, and I actually encouraged him to increase it a little bit because, and that's a 30% increase because of those additional
Yeah, I think
expenses.
we need to, I don't think
Over
we should be
25,
dropping.
Either
this-
26, I would say by 26 or 27, I fully anticipate Canandaigua Farmington Water District and Canandaigua Consolidated both to be a tax rate of about $1 a thousand.
Well, that's why I'm like, I don't think we should, if that's going from 89 to 84, I think we should just keep it at 89.
Right.
Rather than drop it at all, because they're gonna need $15 million.
Well, it's the money that they, so, and you guys will have to have that conversation, but it's whatever number he gives
They
us
want, yeah.
because, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that.
If I haven't put you all to sleep yet,
No, not at
that
all.
concludes special districts. But they're important, and it's important because
Very
there's such a huge impact. When you go back and look at this budget at a glance, and that's exactly why I do it. You know, that's a huge, you know, yes, the town tax rate, that's only a $3 increase, but the average home in the homeowner in the town of Canandaigua is gonna end up paying $150 more because of those special districts. And some of them are gonna pay a lot more than 150 because of those special districts.
Yeah, but I mean, people tend to focus on the property tax, but, and that's again, no, not throwing stones, but that chart.
Yep.
is very misleading,
It is.
because, I mean, but
It's
it's,
just the base.
how else can you compare? That is a way of comparing. But, I mean, some of those people have these numbers woven into their rate, and we don't, I mean, it's a mixed bag, but
So one thing we haven't really had an opportunity to discuss yet, because the other meeting was, not really about highway in general, is we haven't really discussed highway
Yeah.
at all. So, I mean, I don't know if you wanna go into that now or what we wanna do, but I think highways utmost importance to a lot of people in this room, so.
Do we have other workshops scheduled?
so.
We have a public hearing on the 11th, but we could also have as a workshop as part of that. We got a workshop on the
Really,
11th, I think that was the wrong name, that was the wrong date,
highway, there's two
October 11th.
primary lines. If you, I mean, union agreement dictates employment, personnel expenses, and then benefit expenses and all that. What really it comes down to is essentially two lines.
Yeah.
That's the highway contractual line, right? And then your general repairs line. So it's equipment and repairs. I mean, we could just talk about it real quick if you want.
Please start at least.
What's the consensus? Do we want to keep going and get,
I would
get the highway,
rather make
get it
sure we at
done?
least talk about it,
Okay.
it's very important.
Leave by 12:30.
12:30? Okay, we have 20 minutes.
Oh, this is revenue. Let me jump to-
No, no, no.
I'm sorry.
Jess is
Okay,
very
right.
quietly saying 81.
So general road maintenance, here we go, in capital project transfer, right? It's number two. And then.
What page you on now?
So this is page 82.
82.
82, you said?
So this is the number right here, and Jim, feel free to jump in with details, but, so this is kind of some of the stuff I was talking about here on page 82. It's DA 100, 5110, 400, this is general repairs contractual. So Jim had asked for 1.7 million, and this is funded at 1.2 million. And basically what this line item does is it takes, yes, he has $1.2 million here, but it's moving 500,000 over into, in addition to the money that's in that capital project that we created so that we can continue to invest in that, but
Is that coming from fund balance or sales tax that have been?
this is a budgeted $500,000 to go into that capital project so that you can
So he's pulling from the capital project or
No.
putting it
No.
into the
No.
capital, okay.
put it
Okay.
into. So what's in that capital project right now? Still about $1 million, right? Yeah, so. this
Oh, you're
one-
spending it? I thought you were spending
Oh,
it.
no.
Oh, we
there's-
spent some, what?
Yeah, well, there's a requisition for $500,000 right now.
Yeah, I thought you
So.
It's
I
a
mean,
I thought you
moving target. I don't know.
So-
We gave him a pile, I thought he'd been spending
Yeah,
some.
no, we're spending.
Was a statement made earlier that we were talking about unexpended fund balance. The highway department spent everything that was in the budget.
Previously, right?
I think there's like 300.
There's only
right now.
300, right?
If we find a way to increase it, we're gonna be able to spend it.
Did you really,
So,
I mean, not even.
did you really just ask for Jim budget to
Or,
spend money?
Now, remember, we have a cost coming up for that culvert, we got $1.5 million for it, we still gotta have 600,000 to complete. We're gonna have soft costs for the next 2 years. Because it takes forever with the state to get this project going, that we're gonna have to pay out of pocket first before we get reimbursed.
Well, things like that culvert, I mean, that's something Monday night, I brought up that topic of there are things that we could bundle together and buy. And that's probably one of them, but oddly enough, the banks want the money back
Yeah.
at some point, so that goes into the budget, which raises the property tax rate.
And
And
to
we're gonna pay for it one way or
To
another.
your point of saying it, Terry, so the board has hired MRB for certain roads that we want to see improved. I think North Road could be the soonest one to start, but we haven't put any money even in this year's budget for putting that to go out to bid, possibly for next year. Me and my next year going out for the following year,
North Road.
not gonna be at this budget meeting today, because I think everybody needs to have more discussion on
Well,
where we're gonna, how much you wanna borrow and what.
But we need to plan, right? That's what we're gonna.
We need to plan and put them in, yeah.
it's got, yeah, I mean, it's not just, it's series of, they're not necessarily all in the highway there.
Yeah, and that, I know off water, but that goes for water meter replacement. So,
Well, you see right here, I mean, so Jim requested 1.7 million, this is funded at 1.25, you know. They're easily 500,000 there, right? And then the same for the equipment line. The equipment line is right here, Jim requested 925,000, it's funded at 390, and the two are these dollars, and this is exactly why we highlight these dollars to draw attention to it. Jim requested 200,000 for a road tractor, it's funded at $1 in this budget, and requested 300,000 for a wheel excavator, it's funded at $1. You know, and so that's exactly what we were talking about at Public Works the other day, right? And so I even brought up, you know, maybe what we do is we bond the infrastructure roadway work, right? Instead of bonding equipment, we pay cash for equipment because we get a better interest rate doing it that way, a better bond rate. But we need to have those strategic conversations. And I feel like we never have enough time. It's almost like we need a special meeting
Well, you
to talk
gotta
about that type of
You
stuff.
gotta do this.
Yeah,
Yes, your workshop.
Yeah.
Right.
And all would list them and then debate, decide how we're gonna pay.
again, this is coming from our current policy of equipment replacement.
Yeah.
All right, and that there has been decimated due to COVID,
Mhm.
but I was just trying to get a few, get us back in there.
So we need to review both,
Real domino.
Yeah.
thing.
equipment and capital improvements.
Correct.
We need both of them on the table.
Yeah,
Is there, are we gonna have time to be able to adjust that for next year?
for what?
To be able to adjust, and, I mean,
This won't be adjusted. That's a bigger discussion.
I think,
That's gonna take you.
I think the board's gonna need to get through this and then.
We gotta get through this, and then when
24
24 rolls in is when we have to line up that discussion for the
So when it
big.
comes to
But are you-
August, you're ready.
are you saying we're not starting North Road next year because we haven't talked about bonding it?
I put it out there that if you want to start something next year, that this is the time to be discussing it.
I wanna be starting North Road next year. I don't know if everybody else agrees with me on that.
That's
I do.
easy, honestly, truly, that's easy to say, right, but that's why we need this conversation.
Yeah.
We've also said it'd be nice to have a new courthouse, that's not funded in this
Yeah,
budget,
I
we
know.
said we need basic improvements in this town hall, none of which is funded in this budget. We need to have those conversations, they're
Exactly.
critically important.
And that will create a larger number,
Yes,
Yeah,
which will then create a referendum on that to see, I mean, that would go, if it's a big number, that would.
Public
There's more
referendum.
public input,
Miss it,
right?
So,
Yeah, that, so the actual result in
Right.
the referendum. We also heard last night, not a specific number, but we need to have money set aside, whatever that means, for remediation efforts. That might come our way, we don't know, FEMA, all that stuff is for us, but you know, that's in there too, we haven't talked about that at all for next year. I mean, we do have still about 150 grand, you said, that
In the-
so
the
in
Zuckerberg.
that joint city town, you know, so if there was some work to be done next year, we have to have some source.
That's where it becomes really important to have, usually it's laid out, a capital improvement plan is usually laid out in a 15-year time period. The first 5 years are really, okay, here's what we're really gonna try to do in the next 5 years. And then here's what we think is gonna happen in the following 10, but at least it kind of lays out a roadmap. And then you have a financial plan to go with that, and the same for our capital plan for our equipment, and all that type of stuff. But as Jim said, COVID threw a wrench in the plan that we had, and it needs to be updated, and a lot of things have changed, and the equipment costs have substantially gone up since then.
Well, that's a big thing, the cost of the equipment is pushed out some of
And the
the.
timeline is messed up.
No, there is no time, timeline is.
no, let's go back to North Road, I think, if the board could. I'm gonna say 100,000, because to start the documentation. of MRB to get the bid documents together to go out in 25. Mainly want to start next year, but I think we have a plan together how to pay for all this. But if you get the documents ready to go for bidding, that would be at least movement in the right direction.
Some of that can come from the Complete Streets capital project, because we're doing essentially a complete street on North Road, I would think, so.
That's up to you.
So you just need a decision from us to
Yeah.
free up
Right.
100,000 from complete
Correct.
streets
So
to go towards that.
Are
And if
we,
you don't spend everything you're given this year.
I
Are
can't spend
we
that money,
generally-
okay, that's a different
Yeah.
pot.
Are we generally in
That's a
agreement?
different pot of money.
Budget transfer.
Are we generally-
Well,
agreement to
I know what
use-
it's meant for, so.
So
Are we
I'm gonna
generally
put
in
it out there
agreement to
right
do
now
that?
so we can get moving on that to make Jim happy. I can make I'm fine making a
How
motion
about I
right
get a
now
proposal from
from
MRB,
MRB.
and then we can, there's a November meeting.
Do you think it'll be up to 100? It'll be below 100,000 or up
I'm
to?
hoping.
So
I
we
mean,
could-
let's just do it right now.
We could-
I think you're better getting a proposal and then approving the proposal.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you have consent, you
That's
have
not a
at least
budget
three,
consequence.
Right,
you have at least three.
I'll just tell Bradley something. All right, so
Mm-hmm.
let's move.
Well, then tell him you might have three. It's like depending on where it is, we've got 2.5, and if the number's good, you might have three.
Okay.
But like it was mentioned, I'm sorry.
I do have a question. The general road maintenance is $750,000.
Yep.
Is that similar to what we had this year, this one for road maintenance?
This year I had 1.75 to spend. So what Doug is saying is, so we're gonna take 500,000 of that capital project, and we're going to use it, I'll just use Emerson Road. We're gonna rebuild it. If I don't go through it, it'll carry over to the next year. Instead of going to fund balance, the other 750, we've got surface treatment, culverts, shoulder repairs, that type of stuff. I see Mullen Road size, like getting a cutter head to cut down brush in the winter time, or out trimming trees. The other items we could be doing is replacing culverts that have failed, the metal ones inside of, like on Butler Road, instead of replacing all the gutter, which was good, we lined them with a fiberglass liner. And which isn't not cheap, but it's less expensive and intrusive to the land that's there, because we haven't got to reestablish. So those are some of the 750 there. The one thing that over time is gonna cramp the town is the state's new rules on their CHIPS fund. So they used to let us chip seal every 5 years a road, now they do it every 10 years. So they gave us more money, they gave us more rules. Certain surface treatments are frowned upon if you do it more than twice. They don't wanna pay for it. They don't wanna pay for certain pieces of equipment now, because they rather see it towards. They don't wanna see you buying a street clear when you need a dump truck. So those.
So let me go back to something he just said. Yeah, I think what you were trying to ask is for comparison of the 2 years. Okay. So this budget line specifically was funded in the 23 budget at 1.2 million. For 24 budget, it's proposed at 125. What Jim is talking about is, in addition, the state made us start keeping track of chips separately last year. That's the next budget line. So when he said 1.7, he was combining the two lines. But this line specifically was funded at 1.2 million last year, and at 125 this year is what the proposal is. Last year's 1.2 million was 400,000 for Dual Road, 100,000 for concrete gutter repairs, 300,000 for Silvernail Drive, and 400,000 for Seneca Point Road culvert, which we know is nowhere near 400,000.
Well, no, that's the other call. There's
So
two
in
there's two different
in
columns.
summary, what I'm hearing you say is last year, the 750 and 487 were combined number at 1.2.
No, it was 1.2 plus the 4. Last year
Plus
was 451, so it was still 1.7 combined. Right. It's, you would have to see, like Terry here, the 23 budget stage, this is the number, this is the adjusted budget number here. The 23 budget 1.2, and then you can look at the previous year. So see here, this is the CHIPS line. They didn't exist up until 23 because that's when the state made us start doing it, so that's why it was 0 previously. And then here's previously with the budget lines where this included the CHIPS money back then. So like in 22 to 1.5, that included the CHIPS money that's now separate, right? So it's, I guess if you want to look at it as 1.7 combined, it's technically up a little bit, but it's still way below where it really needs to be.
Jim, what roads are you planning on working on next year?
It depends on where the budget lands. Honestly, I've got some thoughts, but I don't have, I know Emerson Road's gonna be one.
Okay.
That's gonna be a cold mix recycle, replace culverts, drainage, and then the hot mix overlay. Depending on the budget side, I like to do their Silverdale, you know, there's $500,000 alone right there to fix that. So between those two roads, and Millville, Village Cheshire Road from White Cliff to Butler, so there's another 400,000.
But that's where the 284 agreement comes in.
Yeah.
Jim will propose to you based on whatever the number is on the
But
budget.
generally, 3 large projects will eat up 1.5 and we'll use like a quarter of the 300,000 for, I'll call them maintenance projects. Wedging the roads, replacing culverts, buying pipe, buying pitch basins, concrete repairs. So I would like to see it around 2 million. As I said before, already times we have several subdivision roads that need to be replaced. Surface treatment doesn't solve that issue after 15 years of use. Concrete gutters, we still have subdivisions that have metal pipe in them that are corroding to the point where someday we'll have to replace them.
Overall, you see here in this, I just want to share this, right? Personnel costs and highway, I mean, such a fantastic job of just keeping it slow and steady, right? Equipment costs are up a little bit in this. Contractual expenditures, you can kind of see where we were, kind of down here a little bit. There's a page, I was just trying to find it here, that's a line chart somewhere that shows you kind of comparison. It should be, maybe it's back further, I'm sorry, I was just trying to find it real quick. There's a lot of detail in there about all of that. Personnel costs. Here's our major fund expenses, highway capital fund, contractual expenses. This predominantly are those lines that we were just talking about. This is what I wanted to show you here. So you can see 2019 prior to the pandemic, they were funding this at $2.8 million. And so, you know, then there was a huge cut, basically cut it in half during the pandemic. We weren't sure what was going to happen, and we've been slowly trying to, you know, come back and climb back from that. But we're still just now getting there where we were in 2019. That doesn't even factor in the increased costs, the rate of inflation, and everything else. That's why I say we're really underfunding, you know, what the requests are. And then even here, you see here the tentative versus the department head request. The red line is the tentative budgets over the years. The blue line is the department head request, and kind of where we've been at. And the overall expenses, this kind of gives you a just chart over the last 4 or 5 years. What's going on. And then that one little pie chart back for highway. This is general fund expenses, but you see in terms of the revenue where it comes from, highway is predominantly more than half of it's funded by sales tax.
Hopefully stays.
Right.
We thought there would be a dip
Hopefully it
in sales. We thought there would be a dip in sales tax, but it has, it stays steady, it's been steadily increasing even when we thought it would dip.
You know, just talk about costs. Today an article just came out that Cargill is going to shut down their salt line in Ithaca. So it's going to leave you with one salt line.
It's still, that's all.
So no competition.
You're saying somebody should invest and start their own. site.
So all I'm saying is, you know, that came out today and you know they're gonna. So. I don't know when exactly, but
So invest in salt.
You may want to.
Maybe we should take some fund balance and buy the Cargill mine and,
Do we make the brine out of salt or
We
do
don't
we
make,
purchase the
yes, you
brine?
do make brine, but we do not use brine, we use magnesium chloride with corrosion inhibitors in it.
Okay.
I don't have the tanks or the equipment which the city is thinking about. Long story short is no. And that could be a conversation of, at this point, why we don't, but we are using magnesium chloride with live edge blades. And we have been saving salt because we're using more material off the road. Calibrate, and use an additive, but we can when it's colder temperatures. So. Should have sat on my panel at Cornell this year, let's be talking all about salt and stuff, so.
it was riveting.
Oh, it was.
Heated roads.
Heated roads.
Yeah,
We are
we-
very, very fortunate. to have
Yeah.
Jim. I mean, Jim is all over the state of New York. I hear it constantly that Jim is a legend.
Yeah. Okay. all right,
Highway
be careful now.
superintendents and his knowledge and expertise.
Stop making
And-
me
Legend or
He's a-
infamous.
he's a- yeah.
Well, you know, it is funny, whenever I go to a training session, there's not a single person there that hasn't heard of the town of Canandaigua from either Association of Towns or from the comptroller's office, they're all
They're like,
very
"Oh, that guy in
familiar
the
with
orange
town
shirt?"
Canandaigua.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't have-
sure, yep.
So the good news is though.
Yep.
With that electric cars don't work well in the cold.
Correct.
So with more coming online, people won't drive as much in the cold. So we don't need to plow as much.
Or I'm gonna be in the row and die.
So. So
Hey, that could be a revenue, we'll tow the generator.
Towing
Tow
the
the generator.
We'll
generators.
never charge it, we'll make a revenue from
They
it.
make a lot of money out of
listen, we gotta
that.
think outside the box.
That's your revenue source.
Yeah, I like,
Don't ask them to plow on Christmas Eve. Because that's his family.
Oh, yeah.
Party night.
did you ask him to plow out your driveway?
No, I was coming down, the road that the Warners are on.
Good
It
deal,
was a sheet of ice. He would not answer his phone.
because I knew better.
Yeah.
He would not answer his phone.
I'm thinking all day.
There is a request from a resident, by chat. Are you working on the drainage street near 27 or 3700 County Road 16?
No, we would have to discuss that with Ontario County. They maintain County Road 16, so the town would, not that we wouldn't assist, but we would have to discuss it with the county first.
Is everybody
And those-
wrapping up here?
And those are questions too, is that Nancy? That you can send those off to me too for Public Works. Cause I'm being on that committee, any of these requests can be sent and forwarded if you have specific concerns that pop up.
Can I just ask one more question or or is there?
Yeah,
more
everybody,
privilege of the
so
floor?
we do have one last privilege of the floor, yes.
Are you going to, how are you going to address the Sucker Brook? You're all in the meeting last night, I think,
Mhm.
and is that gonna be addressed? Is it too late to get a line item in the budget? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we have, like we said, we have the money in the fund that's specifically for Sucker Brook water quality projects. We have 150,000 that we can only use for those projects.
Okay.
So we have that funding between both of us. What we need to do now is we really need info from, as we left it last night, suggestions from Kevin working with our folks. Here are the priorities that you need. Some of the priorities won't need money. Well, everything will need money. Let me take that back. Some of them are things we can control, like projects we've already done that we can improve. Some of them will require more money if we need to acquire land, if we need to acquire easements. But that is, we don't exactly know what the number is. But if we were to come back with a request, if Jim were to say, let's, here's what I think we might need to add to have in there for Sucker Brook or for some of that.
I think the asking last night was 150 from each
That was kind of,
municipality.
that was, yeah, that was
I
a,
asked
That was John Goodwin.
that was-
150. Kevin never really answered.
no,
No,
The thing is, though, you can't really do we probably shouldn't do anything until we find out what FEMA
What
is
it's-
going to do. So based on that, Kevin, Jim Sprague, people that we identified last night as being that core group. Once they have that information, you'd be better able to say, well, we have money to do this, we need this much, there's a delta. What do we do? I mean, you can't put a number in if you don't know what the number is.
There is a general fund unassigned, which you see us passing resolutions at all of our town board agendas, where something has come up, a project that was not yet prepared for, that we can pull from, when they can actually identify a specific amount. And I think, I don't want to speak for the board, but I think we're all pretty much in agreement that any flooding mitigation efforts we can do are definitely important to all of us.
How much do we have in that fund now? Do we know?
The general unassigned
You know,
fund.
the general unassigned fund.
Well, there's, what did I estimate? There was
2.9,
That was like 2.9.
so
So I'm estimating
2.9 million, or I think,
So can you backtrack to the 150K funding for Sucker Brook? Is that between you, the city?
it's between the, it's money that we each put money in, and
Okay.
that's what's left.
So there's a Sucker Brook fund.
It's already been
Basically,
there
yeah,
for
it's
several
been
years.
created.
John,
Okay.
Because
So-
we actually have already done some projects from that
Right.
fund.
So a couple other things too with that, we also, and we were talking about this the other night, there's also the legality too, if there was open space that we were to purchase and protect. Can open space be used for any of that?
it depends. We have to do it on a
Okay.
case by case basis.
So-
Possible.
The answer is that possible, we have open space, a big chunk of money that could be used. We also have, and I mentioned it last night, the hazard mitigation plan that the county is working on. We can get on board with that and we can join in, and then there is funding, the group pursues funding for you for mitigation projects. So we have multiple sources for that. It's definitely on the top of, on our radar, like number one on the radar to look at these projects. We do need more information coming back from our FEMA meeting and from Kevin.
If there's $2 million in the unassigned fund, which Doug just mentioned, on as needed basis, we can take, yep.
But even keep in mind, the reason we have that money in Sucker Brook capital project, the city put in 175, the town put in 150, and then we were able to stretch it through grants. And that's the other thing that we have to
Yeah.
definitely explore.
And I think that's what came up last night also, that should there be a grant that comes up and it's available, we may need to fund the cost for a period of time, and we could do that out of one of the funds that we're talking about now, and then replenish the fund when we get the grant money.
Correct.
It is the one.
That unassigned.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you say yes?
I said one part, because Doug was like, Jim, did this a year ago, I'm like, yeah.
Well, that's why when somebody said we get paid back in a year, I wanted to be like, wait a minute.
No, it's.
No, not, it's not always a year or two. So Terry, it's something that Oksana, was your hand up again? Okay.
That unassigned fund balance, though, is not like just safe with money in it, and you just go grab and spend every penny.
No,
That unassigned fund balance will be used a year from now. So offset the 25 budget, because we're gonna have the same problem a year from now, so it's not all
Yeah.
available.
Gotta be very judicious.
Very
Okay.
judicious.
Oksana?
Two things. The power outages on County Road 16. We have had numerous this year, but it's not just this year, it's every year. What can RG&E do?
Airline is still experiencing that same problem over in Liquid Metals.
Which problem? We're
Power.
having power
I
issues.
think
We were out the other
This
day.
one is about your road, Michael's Road, Liquid Metals.
I was just out for 2 hours. so-
Yeah, it goes out
Yeah.
frequently down
Water
that
for
way.
Point as well.
Goes
I
out.
figured you did it on Silverdale.
Oh, I just go through
So-
Sultan's fiber line.
So with that, I have a contact at RG&E that I work with other more specific resident issues. Similarly, down the road, there's a resident who says their voltage is off the charts coming in their house, but it's not. I mean, that's what RG&E did testing and said, but it's within the limit. So there's somebody that I can talk to. I'll reach out to them after this and see, okay, is there anything going on? What's going on? Why is this happening?
I've been told that RG&E selects certain areas during peak periods that they will shut down so that they don't drain the grid.
Rolling
That's a-
brownouts.
It's a true statement.
Rolling brownouts, yes.
I'll ask
related to the
them if
water
they're,
plant, Which is why.
Well, we do
we're
have,
regenerating.
The
That's-
LDC meeting this morning, next month, this guy from Iberdrola, Archie.
Mhm, yeah.
Well, it's NICEAG and Iberdrola, but they own the whole thing, so supposed to be coming in to talk to us about power and. You know,
Future
that's more of on a different level than power's out at this house, but the questions we can ask.
I'll ask specifically if they're doing rolling blackouts, rolling brownouts in our area.
It feels like it's been a change, you know, like, I feel like I didn't really have any problem until about really COVID. And then since COVID, it's been significantly more frequent issues.
Is he blaming COVID for the plant?
Well, no, but it's, I mean, in like a neighborhood like mine, it's all underground wires, right?
Right.
So it's not something happening, it's something happening somewhere else.
It's the
coming, you know,
distribution.
so,
It's the grid.
yeah, exactly.
That's the grid. Karen,
Let's
grid-
talk about
Is it
underground
air?
wiring. The underground wiring on Laurel Lane is more than 50 years old. And you cannot tell me that it does not suffer some deterioration.
Perfect.
Yes, Ray Henry has told me that repeatedly. It suffers from no deterioration.
No
So
moisture,
there,
no.
there is that question because, no, the boxes in the corner of my yard, no one, they put flags there one year, no one's ever touched that box. No one. And I've lived there 50 years, okay. But more than that, when are we going to get fiber on our street? And I understand it's underground wiring, I understand it needs to go through that. I don't wanna understand how, you know,
It's
I
not a
can't read drawings, I can't read specs and all that stuff.
That
It's
But I
not a
wanna
regulated
know when
utility,
we are
unfortunately.
We are going to get it, because Spectrum is not. a very
It's,
good
yeah,
service
with-
provider.
So Karen, I know Go Net Speed did all of Mill Cheshire.
Yes.
I don't know where it goes after that, because the only utility company currently that put in all the fiber was Empire
Mhm.
in certain areas, and they are now half, three-quarters of the way through Old Brookside right now. It takes a long time, because everything's
Well,
underground, but
how come Artie Benham has a sign in his front yard that he's got fiber?
then he has fiber.
How does he have it? He has
You-
underground
And Middle
wiring.
Cheshire
Does it
Road.
say Go Net Speed?
Yes.
No, he's near.
You can get it then, Karen.
Call them if
If
there's
you're-
fiber.
Oh, he's in.
Other Benham, yeah.
I
There's
think,
a,
yeah,
there's a
Red
sign
Venom.
on Whitehall's,
Red Venom, yeah. One of the Benhams.
that was Frontier Fiber.
Yeah, and we got a
On my
mailing
one.
that Frontier was
So we
gonna be
also,
doing our
so
neighborhood.
with that, as an it's an unregulated utility.
Yeah.
They go where the stuff is. I think that the number of times that I didn't have cable, and I get the ad in the mail saying, you can have cable, and I call and they say no. And I called every single time, and then finally there were enough people and they brought it, so it's
Same
it's
thing.
with that. Or you could take Art's sign, you can put it in your yard, and then you would have it.
I will say though, you know, I gave the contact information to the neighborhoods in Fox Ridge, that they've gathered together a number of neighbors to reach out to them directly and indicate, okay, we have these whatever number of people in the neighborhood that would like to sign up with you if you can provide it to this neighborhood. So it's, I mean, you get
So
the lake,
Foxbridge
you
is
can get-
significantly larger than Laurel.
yeah, but Laurel Lane is significantly shorter than Fox Ridge. So-
It's all economies of scale for.
It is.
I
Getting
understand that,
wires.
but that's why you're elected to advocate
Yep.
for the people that live. on
Yes.
Laurel
And we
Lane.
have had meetings with them, it's just they're not a utility, unfortunately, so we don't have.
Yeah, but they have to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me to get their wire
But
underground.
in fact, they are not a non-utility. They
Oh,
are
they should
the
be a
utility of the future.
And
that
You need
is-
to remember
That's-
that.
And that's New York State
Yeah.
needs to start regulating them as utility, I agree with you on that one.
Oh, and that's been a
100%.
thing that's, I know our own representatives have been asking for that
Yes.
for quite a
I
while
know.
on deaf ears. So we do have to come to a conclusion. I know Linda's got her hand up.
I just have a quick question. I was looking at the YouTube channel and I realized that from April till just recently, almost nothing was posted. But the meeting I was looking for was specifically the budget meeting, and then I thought, well, maybe it was called finance meeting, but none of the finance meetings are posted on the YouTube channel. So are we gonna be posting those meetings?
So, yep, to answer your question, if you go to the page on the website where the town board meeting updates, the links are, there's a link there that I put for the video. I linked that there. I do not have access, and I have not had access to upload videos to YouTube. That is not, I have not been
Because somebody
given that
just put
access
them
yet.
up. Somebody just puts them up, but I just want to make
Right.
sure that all of them
Right.
get it. 'cause of
Yep,
us.
so to answer that question, that's something I spent a couple hours trying to do yesterday. I do not have that login or that password.
And neither
It
do
should
I.
be, Doug doesn't have it either, it should be forthcoming, so that's something else to,
Later tomorrow.
yeah, so that will happen, but in the meantime, Linda, so you can see, where is it right there? So if you see a link to the recording of September 18th budget
Share the
workshop, joint Bristol
Sorry,
Water
I
meeting.
Can't see the screen, but
So it's there. I apologize, it's not on
Where is
YouTube
it?
yet.
Where is
And
there's
go
that.
down, press it up, up, slow.
Oh, there, I see it. I see it.
Recording. So I apologize, it's not on YouTube. As soon as I have access, it will be there. But I actually, I think I got access to the website yesterday.
Well, I just think that's something that it's too simple of a job for the supervisor to be responsible for. We should find somebody who is not paid well, I'm not saying you're paid, highly paid, but I'm saying it doesn't seem like a job that requires the supervisor, so I would hope that you guys can find somebody to do it instead of having you to have to do it.
You're saying I'm overqualified.
I'm saying, I'm sure there's gonna be times when the supervisor is way too busy to be playing around with the web pages.
Town clerk's office maintains the minutes, I believe.
Yeah. So we'll-
Thank you for
Yeah,
the
well-
information.
You bet. And it'll be there. Keep checking and keep reminding us, but in the meantime, Sarah controls so much. She has so
She
much,
does.
she's like the glue, so
And
it's,
she was part-time.
I know, so when we get that back there, it'll be up there. But that's a discussion that we'll have to have with that, so that's a good point.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Their cell phone service in Cheshire.
Oh my goodness, you guys are,
What the heck?
Right there.
Actually.
He's got good news on
No,
that.
no, they've made application to us and they're going to be making improvements to that tower. That should only be, I know it's a problem. I was talking to Terry, I was in the jungle in Mexico and I had better signal. in
yeah.
jungle than-
But
It was
you-
supposed to happen this
Jim
week.
explained it, I mean.
George
a couple months
Herring.
ago about that. That's going in Treasure there, that, he said, you've got the water tank and transmission tower the county had, but why is the signal so bad? And you said,
Oh, shit, because I'm so high.
So
well,
we need
it's just
to calibrate the lasers.
because most people have Verizon and Verizon.
Yeah.
repeater
Oh.
is over the hill.
It's over the hill.
You can't, the line of sight
Line of
is
sight
there.
is way off.
The next closest one is across the lake.
Yep.
I
Again,
have
you
no
can't
cell phone
get to
service
that.
in my front yard or in my house.
That's
The
why you
minute I
need
turn into
fiber.
my driveway,
I don't
my
have it in
cell
my
phone cuts
basement.
out. The minute I step in my house, my cell phone hooks up to Wi-Fi. I'm dependent on Wi-Fi in my house.
They have those big,
Oh.
okay,
Well,
These companies.
the one,
I agree.
So we're gonna buy salt mines and we're gonna buy cell phone companies with our fund balance. And then we will-
No, we're not.
That's a joke.
it is.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned.
Whether I did or not.
No, no. The one
All right.
on our side.
See you, Terry.
Yes.